Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've ever felt just completely physically exhausted by your own mind, let me tell you, you are definitely not alone. Having an untrained, overthinking mind, it's literally like carrying around a 50-pound backpack all day. Today, we're tackling that mental clutter head-on. We're pulling some incredible insights from Thomas Alethia's guide, 12 Steps to a Good Life, and we're going to explore a super practical framework to instantly shut down those draining, unproductive thoughts so you can finally get your mental energy back.
Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to take a second and literally examine what's eating up your mental bandwidth right at this exact moment. Are you stressing over someone who isn't even here? Maybe a weird conversation from yesterday? Or a meeting that's not happening until next week? Or maybe that email you keep putting off? So often, we just let our minds spin totally out of control over people and situations that are physically nowhere near us.
I absolutely love this quote from the source text. It says, "Of the 100 billion thoughts I've had in my life, 99% of them were bullshit." I mean, wow, it so perfectly validates that intense internal struggle we all have with mental clutter. Think about it for a second. So much of our daily suffering, the anxiety, the stress, it's caused by completely unnecessary thoughts. We're reacting to crazy stories our brain is spinning up, rather than what's actually happening in our actual lives.
Section 1. Thoughts are not reality. Mental events.
To fix this mental clutter, we've got to understand the basic anatomy of a thought. Look, our minds are naturally wired to make mistakes. They're designed to catastrophize, to assume the absolute worst, and to spin these elaborate fairy tales just to protect us. But the real problem kicks in when we forget that our thoughts are just mental events. They're interpretations of the world, not the world itself. Think of it like this. Your thoughts, your interpretations, the stories you tell yourself, they're just a map. Actual physical reality is the territory. Thoughts are just models, and confusing your map with the actual territory, that is a guaranteed recipe for suffering. You wouldn't look at a paper map of a mountain and think you were actually freezing in the snow, right? But we do this exact thing with our thoughts every single day.
So, you might be wondering, how often is our mental map actually wrong? Well, the author shares this fascinating story in the text. He actually took a psychological test to figure out his degree of self-deception. And get this, the results showed he was lying to himself 85% of the time. Crazy, right? Through cognitive distortions and automatic thinking errors, his brain was feeding him a version of reality that simply wasn't true 85% of the time.
And here's exactly how that self-deception usually shows up, in these exhausting, unproductive thought loops. You've got mind reading, which is when you just assume you know what others are thinking, and it's pretty much always negative. Then there's fortune telling, where you predict failure or disaster without a single shred of evidence. Catastrophizing, that's expecting the absolute worst possible outcome in literally every situation. And emotional reasoning, which is when you believe something is a hard fact simply because it feels that way to you. These specific thinking errors pull us so far away from the truth and just completely drain us mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Section 2. The same room rule. The circuit breaker.
Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is that once you recognize those distortions, you need a quick way to shut them down before they ruin your whole day. And it all comes down to the same room rule. This is a heuristic stating that if you're stressing over a person or an event that is not physically in the same room with you right now, the thought is totally useless, and you should deliberately let it go. I want to break the fourth wall here for just a second. I want you to apply this to whatever was bothering you right before you started this explainer. Seriously, is that person or that problem in the room with you right now? If not, you're literally suffering over a ghost.
To really see how this works in practice, let's contrast a problem that's in the room, like, say, a pot boiling over on the stove, or a friend standing right in front of you asking for help, with one that isn't. An in-the-room problem requires productive, actionable thought. You have to do something about it. But stressing over a vague email from your boss while you're safely standing in a warm shower, that thought is completely non-productive. It's a map of a territory you aren't even standing in. So, when you catch yourself stressing over something that fails this same room test, the text gives you a really specific, simple tool. You just say to yourself, out loud or in your head, "I do not need to think about this." Consciously use that exact phrase to dismiss the non-productive thought. By doing that, you're literally giving your brain permission to drop all that heavy baggage and switch your attention right back to whatever is directly in front of you.
Section 3. Stopping the spiral. Active interruption. Now, we all know letting go is way easier said than done, right? So let's open up the toolbox and look at some actionable steps you can use when your mind is being particularly stubborn. But first, we have to clarify a totally critical difference. Thought stopping is an active, healthy process. It's where you acknowledge a thought isn't helpful, interrupt it, and actively replace it. Thought suppression, on the other hand, is really dangerous. Actually, scratch that. It's more like an unhealthy avoidance tactic, where you just try not to think about something by numbing yourself out with distractions or compulsions. We want to actually stop the thought, not just sweep it under the rug.
And this brilliantly illustrates how to do it healthily. It's called the radar technique. First, reflect. Just pause and observe your thoughts without judging them. Second, describe. Use totally neutral language to name the thought. So instead of saying, "I'm a massive failure," you say, "I'm having the thought that I will fail." Huge difference. Third, respond. You choose a value-based action. This structured framework creates this vital, incredibly important space between what you think and what you actually do.
The text also drops these amazing physical cues you can use to short-circuit your brain. You can literally just say a trigger word out loud, like stop. Or you can focus on two physical sensations at the exact same time, like rubbing your fingers together on both hands. You can try the 4-6 breathing method, which is inhaling for 4 counts and exhaling for 6. But guys, the most fascinating biological hack here is that second point: relax your jaw and gently touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Apparently, even silent thinking involves tiny micro movements in your tongue. So deliberately relaxing it actually disengages the brain's language center and quiets your mind. How wild is that?
Section 4. Returning to the present, where life happens. The absolutely crucial point here is that managing these thoughts isn't just some clever productivity hack. It's the ultimate key to actually living a peaceful life. When you use the same room rule, when you apply radar, and when you physically stop the spiral, you're doing something incredibly profound. You're bringing yourself back to the only place where life actually happens. As the text beautifully puts it, the present moment is all you ever truly have. Look, visiting the past through memory, or the future through planning, that should really only be done when it's strictly necessary and productive. Otherwise, if we spend all our time living in the map of our thoughts, we completely miss the actual territory of life unfolding right in front of us.
Which brings us to our final question for today. I want you to look around you right now. Seriously, really look at your physical surroundings. What mental baggage are you holding on to that isn't in this room? I urge you to apply the same room rule today. Drop the stress over things that just aren't physically here. Step out of the illusion of your thoughts and just enjoy the incredible relief of the present moment. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.